eyes on our skies. The US military saying it's still unsure what the three flying objects it downed over North America were and how they were able to stay aloft too, but they were taking no chances, it seems. President Joe Biden ordering another object, the fourth in the past few weeks, to be downed on Sunday. Well, a military commander said it could be a gaseous type of balloon or some type of propulsion system. Incredibly, he went on to say he could not rule out that the objects were extraterrestrial. Well, Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace said the UK will be conducting a security review after these incidents. One government minister saying it was possible that Chinese spy balloons had been operating in Britain's skies. And now in the past hour, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak saying Britain would do whatever it takes to ensure safety and security. So joining us in our studio, security editor Mark White. And Mark, therein lies the question, whatever it takes, what is it going to take? Because we're not quite sure what this is yet. We had the balloon originally, now they're talking about objects in terms of the US airspace.
Yes, I mean, it's a real head-scratcher and really only being exacerbated by the fact that the US in particular are saying very little about what these objects are. We remember, of course, on the 4th of February, we had this supposed Chinese spy balloon that was struck by a missile, taken out of the skies when it had transited US airspace and was out over the Atlantic.
Yeah, over the South Carolina coast.
Now, this is the wreckage from that balloon that's being recovered. Now, of course, claims at the time that it was a Chinese spy balloon. The wreckage has been recovered, it's being examined, but the US haven't really said much about what exactly it was or how it operated, except they haven't really rode back from their initial claim that it was a Chinese spy balloon. Then, of course, over the weekend, three separate incidents in as many days over the US and Canada. These objects, as they've been described, smaller, we're told, than the initial balloon that was sighted over the US on the 4th of February that was taken down anyway. But that's pretty much all that the US are saying about them. These are the Raptor, the F-22 aircraft that we used to take down two of the objects.
Planes. But I mean, the sort of intriguing thing is that the Pentagon was saying that this wasn't just sort of balloon floating there, it was actually going up and down as if it had some kind of control system as well.
Well, and that's the mystery here. There was clearly a propulsion system at work. The altitude that these balloons or these objects were operating at is also a worry because the highest one was only about 40,000 feet, which is on the fringes of what commercial air traffic can be up at. And of course, military air traffic do operate at 40,000 feet and above, so some real concern there. They were also flying over some sensitive areas around Canada and around Alaska, and of course some sensitive areas further south in the US as well. So the Pentagon have been pretty tight-lipped as to what they are, which has only really added to the speculation.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the question, well, you know, could they have been over our airspace? One minister saying, well, it's possible, and Ben Wallace conducting now some kind of security review. And
the Prime Minister now, just in the last hour, Mark, reacting to this as well, not going into a great deal of detail, but certainly saying that British fighter quick reaction jets are on standby to respond. This is what he said.
I want people to know that we'll do whatever it takes to keep the country safe. We have something called the Quick Reaction Alert Force, which involves Typhoon planes, which are kept on 24/7 readiness to police our airspace, which is incredibly important. I can't obviously comment in detail on national security matters, but we're in constant touch with our allies.
And, of course, we know that those Typhoons intercept Russian aircraft coming across on various sort of escapades and quite high-performance jets that can fly quite high.
Yep.
But the question is, why haven't these things been picked up before? Because we assume that all the spying carries on with satellites, very sophisticated. The idea of a balloon floating over with some sort of box brownie underneath seems counterintuitive.
Yes, I mean, one of the reasons I think is that there has been an adjustment on what they call the sort of Doppler radar range gain, basically on the various radar systems they use, mainly to detect aircraft entering our airspace or potentially missiles, ballistic missiles coming into our airspace, North American airspace. They are attuned to detecting these fast-moving objects. They have, as I understand it, now been retuned or sort of
recalibrated.
Recalibrated is the word. Yes, absolutely. To get and detect slower moving objects.
Right.
The difficulty with doing that, of course, is you've got clouds in the sky, you've got birds in the sky, and so they are.
And even weather balloons, which of course is what the Chinese are saying. That's what they are.
Exactly. So they're calibrated to a point to rule out the slower moving objects. Now that they're being recalibrated, they are picking up, it seems, more in the way of objects. Well, the Chinese firing back in the verbal sense to the Western powers are saying that, look, we've detected 10 balloons over our airspace as well, and pointing the finger at the US government. Regardless of that, they say the US are completely overreacting. This is what their foreign affairs spokesman said a little earlier.
We've already said many times that the Chinese unmanned civilian airship that strayed into US airspace was a complete accident. As for the other so-called unidentified flying objects, I have no knowledge of these. But what we want to tell everyone is that the US's frequent firing of advanced missiles to strike down unidentified flying objects is an overreaction of excessive force.
Chinese position, and they're, as you say, indicating they believe 10 US air balloons have gone over their territory. But, I mean, where do we go from here? Presumably, now that this is out in the open, all Western powers are going to have to shoot down whatever they suspect may be an erroneous aircraft or some kind of object. And that in itself has a knock-on effect for the public, because as we heard Joe Biden saying, they had to wait until that balloon got out over the coast before shooting it down, because you don't really know what's actually underneath it or what's contained in this craft. Well,
as we've seen in Ukraine, when the Ukrainian military tried to shoot down missiles coming in, there is an effect which is clearly, very risky for those on the ground, which is the debris from these missiles and the missile interceptors to land on top of people and housing, and we know people have died because of that. So there is some real legitimate concern about the potential for the fallout, quite literally, from anything that they take out of the sky. So you're right. That's why they're waiting often until they're over a deserted landmass or out over the sea. But I think in the short term, where we are is rapidly increasing tensions. We've already, of course, we're at a point where what has happened in Ukraine has ramped up the tensions very significantly between the West and Russia. We've been having Western leaders warning some time about the threat that China poses, and then you have real-world incidents like this being reported. That is just going to ramp up that tension as well.
Taiwan and Ukraine together, which with a double whammy, as it were.
And so expect, I'm afraid, in the days and weeks ahead, more of these incidents to be reported as they all recalibrate their radar systems to try to detect them.
We thank you for the moment. We'll let you get outside and get binoculars up and keep an eye on the skies.